afternoon. This is Global and fighting for the survival of his private refinery. It disclosed that some groups who funded resistance to the Bola Tinubu government's removal of petrol subsidies are equally opposed to the refinery operating easily in the country. He was, however, optimistic that his shared determination will help win the fight for the refinery. Outside Nigeria, the Kenyan government has described as shameful an incident in which a shoe was thrown at President William Ruto during a rally yesterday. The incident happened when President Ruto was addressing a crowd at a public event in the western county of Migori as part of a 3-day tour of the region where he has been launching and commissioning development projects. Government spokesman, when President Ruto was addressing a crowd at a public event, government spokesman Isaac Wara, in a post on X, condemned what happened and called for those behind it to be apprehended, calling for the institution of the presidency to be respected. Some members of parliament have also criticized the shoe throwing, which has been described as a major security lapse. Another Rwandan Foreign Minister Olivier Dugurire has said Rwanda is in the early stages of talks to receive immigrants deported from the United States. Speaking during a state broadcast, Dugurire said discussions are still ongoing and have not yet reached a point where it's clear how things will move forward. Rwanda has, in recent years, positioned itself as a destination country for migrants that Western countries would like to remove, despite concerns by right groups that Kigali does not respect some of the most fundamental human rights. Kigali signed an agreement with Britain in 2022 to take in thousands of asylum seekers from the UK before the deal was scrapped last year by then newly elected Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And also South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has given the assurance that the government will continue to correct the imbalances of the past in the workplace. Reflecting on the country's progress in advancing workers' rights since 1999, Ramaphosa says there are still challenges, including racial inequality in top management, non-compliance, and a lack of protection for informal workers. This follows the Democratic Alliance High Court challenge against the Employment Equity Amendment Act, EEAA. The DA argues that the legislation's race-based employment quotas could exclude countless South Africans from job opportunities. You're listening to Globe File and Adami Mogo 93.1 FM Lagos. Still to come, United States makes move to reopen notorious prison.
You can listen to Adami Mogo 93.1 FM from any part of the world. Download the Adami Mogo 931 FM app from Google Play Store and Radio Garden, and follow us on Adami Mogo 93.1 FM on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you have eyewitness stories or exclusive to share, contact the Adami Mogo FM newsroom via mail at newsroom@adamimogofm.com, or you can dial 070-634-03583. You can dial 090-319-69629. Adami Mogo 93.1 FM Lagos, voice of the light.
Thank you for staying with us, and now to the rest of our stories. The infamous Actors prison is set to be reopened after decades of being shut. President Donald Trump gave the hint recently, opening up on his plans to reopen, expand and transform it into a historic tourist site. Trump gave the hint on his Truth Social platform on Sunday, declaring that the move was part of a broader crackdown on violent and repeat offenders. According to him, the proposed reopening is a bid to restore law, order, and justice.
Just an idea I've had, and I guess because the judges, so many of these radicalized judges, they want to have trials for every single, think of it, every single person that's in our country illegally, that came in illegally. That would mean millions of trials, and it's just so ridiculous what's happening. And it's long been a symbol, Alcatraz, of whatever it is. I mean, you know, it's a sad symbol, but it's a symbol of law and order.
Located on an island off San Francisco, Alcatraz was once home to America's most notorious criminals, including Al Capone. The UK is marking 80 years since victory in Euro Day, also known as the V-Day. King Charles led a riot performance earlier in a series of events which started out with a military procession through central London. Members of the royal family, including the King and Queen, were seen on the Buckingham Palace balcony waving and acknowledging the crowd. Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the event praised veterans for their selfless dedication, adding that the stories from those who fought are a reminder that the victory was not just for Britain. As seen on the streets, citizens are rooting for the veterans, late or alive. Precisely on May 8, 1945, the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, announced the end of the war in Europe, telling the nation, "This is your victory." To other matters now, a man accused of participating in deadly violence against the white minority in Latakia, Syria, has revealed how Syrian government force advised and monitored armed civilian fighters during the attack. The chilling revelation has televised in rising concerns over Syria's sectarian fault lines. The detained man, identified as Abu Khalid, claimed he was part of a civilian group mobilized to Sanaba village on March 7 under the pretext of targeting insurgents. According to him, the General Security Department gave them directives, warning them not to harm civilians, yet remained actively involved in overseeing the operation.
The General Security Department told us not to harm any civilians, but only to shoot at insurgents who shot at us. It was a large group, and the General Security oversaw things so that no one would vandalize the village or harm the residents.
Although he insisted the victim was an armed insurgent, video footage filmed by Khalid himself reportedly shows no evidence that Mahmoud posed any threat. Still in the Middle East, tens of thousands of reservists are being mobilized by Israeli forces to expand its operation in the Gaza Strip. According to Israel Defense Forces, the mobilization is meant to increase pressure on the militant group to secure the release of hostages and to dismantle extensive infrastructure. A statement by the military hinted that Israeli forces is bent on destroying all terrorist infrastructure, both above and below ground, referencing Hamas's vast tunnel network and urban hideouts. However, critics argue that the military campaign, now in its most aggressive phase yet, it is expected to have an approved additional operations at a high-level meeting over the weekend. Now talking business, where movies made in foreign countries will now be subjected to 100% tariffs in the United States of America. United States President Donald Trump announced their plan after accusing international film hubs of undermining the American movie industry through aggressive incentives and what he called messaging and propaganda. Trump announced the plan in a statement posted on his Truth platform, saying that he had directed the U.S. Trade Representative to begin the process of levying the tariffs. He warned that the decline of the domestic film industry posed a national security threat, adding that America's movie industry was edged. Also, a Formula One driver, Lando Norris, has thrown a jibe at Max Verstappen in the aftermath of the Miami Grand Prix. Norris, who lost fourth position on the first lap while trying to overtake Verstappen, said the Red Bull man was not racing very smart.
No, it was fine. I mean, he's fighting hard. But it's up to him to do that. He's ruined his own race. He's not racing very smart, and he probably could have finished third today, and he didn't because of that. So, he's fighting hard as always expected.
According to Norris, the delay Verstappen caused to his own race by battling with the McLarens cost the four-time champion third place to George Russell. The Mercedes driver had passed Verstappen by pitting under a virtual safety car. And just before we end Glow Fire, let's tell you that President Bola Tinubu is expected to meet with the leadership of Nigeria's power-generating companies as part of an emergency effort to address the 4 trillion naira debt threatening to cripple the country's electricity supply. A statement by Special Advisor Strategic Communication and Media Relations to the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu Bolaji Tunji, said the federal government vowed to urgently address the debt following high-stake talks between Adelabu and chairman of generating companies Gencos in Abuja. And before we bring Blue Fire to an end, here's a recap of the biggest stories. Just told you that President Bola Tinubu is expected to meet with the leadership of Nigeria's power generating companies, Gencos, as part of an emergency effort to address the 4 trillion naira debt threatening to cripple country's electricity supply. Also in the news, the Rwandan Foreign Minister Olivier Nutugore has said Rwanda is in the early stages of talks to receive immigrants deported from the United States. Finally in the news, we told you the infamous Octaris prison is said to be reopened after decades of being shut. That's Blue File, that's produced by Fortune Omoshola. Join us at 2 o'clock for more stories on The Briefing. Nadami Mogo, 93.1 FM, Lagos. I'm Ayo Adekeye, saying good afternoon and thank you.